We're in Chapter 2 of Pre-AP Precalculus, looking at free response question number 8. Just going to give it a little explanation for any parts of this that maybe you need explanation for. I don't know. In the table below are values of function f on the interval from 0 to 6, inclusive. The graph of f of x consists of aligned segments. That's pretty important. Connecting the points in the table. Use the data in the table to answer the following. Part A, suppose f inverse, scratch that, I misread that. Suppose f of negative x equals f of x. Sketch the graph of f of x on the interval from negative 6 to 6 and explain your reasoning. Well, if we take these ordered pairs, 0, 0, 1, 2, 2, 2, 4, 5, and 6, 5, then the instructions say each of those points are endpoints of segments, and we draw that, we would end up with what you see right here. Since it tells us to sketch it, well, we sketched half of it. Suppose f inverse, I said that again, I'm sorry. Suppose f of negative x equals f of x. Well, here's my explanation, my reasoning, and then I'll graph it. Since, and I'm just reading what's on the paper here. Since f of negative x equals f of x, then f of x is an even function, which means the graph of f of x is symmetric to the y-axis. Well, what does that mean? Because f of x is even for every point x, y on this graph, there's also an ordered pair negative x, negative y. So all that being said, I can take each of these ordered pairs and change the x value to the opposite sign, leave the y value the same, and that's going to give me this part of the graph right here. Done. Part B. Sketch a graph of y equals negative f of x plus 2 on the interval from negative 6 to 6. So to sketch it, explain how you got the coordinates. That make up the graph of f of y equals negative f of x plus 2, which has the same characteristics as the function from part A. So we take a function f of x, which looks like this, and we are supposed to do this little negative in front. What that does is that reflects the graph over the x-axis, which is what I've written down here. Draw this arrow. The negative in front of the f of x causes the graph to reflect over the x-axis. And then this plus 2 causes it to translate the graph f of x up to. So what does that mean? In simple terms, if y equals negative f of x plus 2, then for every point x, y gets transformed to x doesn't change the sign of y, and then add 2 to it. So if I take all these ordered pairs that I have up here, I change the sign of y, puts them all down here, and then move everything up 2, that's going to give me these ordered pairs. If you need to make a table of values to make that happen, make a table of values to make that happen. Part C. Suppose f of negative x was equal to negative f of x. You take the original table that you had, and this being the fact means this is odd. Since f of negative x equals negative f of x, then f of x is odd, which means the graph is symmetric to the origin. You have to say that to get a point. Since f of x is odd, for every point x, y, there's also a point negative x, negative y. In other words, you change the signs of both your x and y values. So here's the original part. If it's symmetric with the origin, that's going to give us these ordered pairs right here. That concludes free response number 8.